So this behind me is a Miclon MacMission. 36 volts, 350 watt Vinka geared rear hub motor. Mechanical disc brakes with 160 millimeter rotors, 170 millimeter crank arms, 36 volt, 13 amp hour battery, 27.5 or 650B, depends on where you are, tires on it. You know, a hybrid style bike, of course, as you can tell by the style. No suspension, aluminum frame, but a real basic light bike that's under 50 pounds, which is a little bit unusual of the market that's kind of dominated by fat tire bikes. And this also, with the coupon code down below, not affiliated, I don't get anything for that, brings the price of this thing down under $800. So if you need some light, cheap, efficient transportation that also comes with a bumped up 4 amp output charger, so you can recharge this thing in a couple hours and get back on the road. So you really can get a lot of range for your buck with this. It does, of course, have some drawbacks. It's going to for this price point. I'm going to show a couple of those right now, and then just show you how this thing rides. The really basic mechanical disc brakes are probably a low point of this bike. Stopping was not all that great, and you know, it just wasn't. And then the brake lever feel is just not, it's not all that good. It's just, there's really no way around it. Some of the unusual things, it does come with a kind of a cheap fender set, no lights, but it has some nicely sealed interior frame routing. Some more expensive bikes won't have this kind of stuff at all. That being said, you know, the welds are not anything that I would want to write home about. And this part of the bike is very kind of narrow, even though you can see you have rack braze-ons here and attachment points there. So you can throw rack on this and you could make this into a real commuting machine. They did go with the rear mounted kickstand, even though there is a plate here for it as well. The only thing I would say is sometimes when I'm riding, I will actually clip this with my heel. As you can see, even when it's up, it does stick out from the profile of the chainstay. I put my own seat post, suspension seat post. It was a necessity for me. Lock on this side just slides out. You do have a battery indicator on this side as well. Got a quick release in the front. Shimano Tourney in the rear, 7-speed. Got your motor cut off here, all that kind of stuff. It's all standard stuff. That Vinka hub motor, and again, these Compass tires on here. One of the things the Miclon has something go for it. You actually have throttle and assist level 0. That's not that common. It's actually quite nice to have. Aside from that, the electronics aren't great. I am getting a ton of buzz from the motor through the frame, and I have a suspension seat post on here right now because I couldn't even tolerate it with the stock seat post. And that vibration continues until, you can kind of hear it up the hill there. It continues until a point here where the motor is no longer kind of working. So that is not a very pleasant feeling. I have to be really honest with you. The other thing I've noticed is some inconsistency on where the speed cutoffs are on this particular bike. So I couldn't even do a graph because there's too much variability. I'm in the 7th gear and I'm sort of spinning out here at about 20, but it still has something to go. Now, it's kind of limited here by the electronics, but if I stop pedaling, the throttle for some reason isn't always working while I'm pedaling. I have nothing on the throttle from now, but if I, oh, it's still not working. I don't know what's going on. Is it? Oh, there we go. I'm going to see what we get, like a pedal top speed for throttle top speed. All right, so we're a little bit above 20. It is what it is. So we got 27.5-inch tires down there. Yeah, pretty good sized tires. It's helping to roll over some things, but this aluminum frame is transmitting a whole lot of vibration to my body. And these stock grips they don't move. They're slip-on grips. They stay put, but they don't have very good feel. I gotta be straight with you. The throttle kind of feels like it works when it wants to work. I did change the pedal sensor. The one that came with it originally was not working correctly, and that seemed to be resolved when Miclon sent me the replacement sensor. So a minute ago I was getting 20 under 22 in assist level 5. Now it's that in assist level 3. So I just don't quite understand what's going on with the electronics. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the shifter here. I'm actually going to get in a better spot so I can bitch about it more thoroughly. So Miclon used a version of this Mickey Mouse kind of shifter up here. It works. It does not feel very good. It's like a cheaper version of an already cheap part. And the brake levers are in that same vein. They just don't give you very good braking performance or feedback. So what does the Miclon have going for it? Lightweight, under 50 pounds, so when you pull the battery off, approaching 40 for easier loading into a vehicle. I think that's great. Lightweight bikes are really where I think the industry should be going. It's also very efficient. 36 volts and 350 watt rear motor. I'm getting in the order of 11 watt hours per mile riding recreationally. We're going to ride a little faster today, and I'm going to give you what the commute speed range is, but those 36 volt systems are very efficient. So if you're an efficiency lover, I happen to be a lover of efficiency, it's a great way to go, because then you'll have 36 volts, 13 amp hours of battery, so you don't have you're actually saving weight in battery on top of the bike and everything else. The other part it has that's quite unusual for this price point is a 4 amp output charger. So that means you can be recharged and back on the road faster than most bikes in this and almost any price range, honestly. It's a kind of a perk if you need that ride and recharge feature. Now, that being said, my biggest problem with this bike is the quality of the components. The quality of the components and the quality of the electronic assist experience. It just isn't giving you a great experience of what an e-bike can be. Now, if you need transportation, you need cheap transportation, and you want to go throttle only, I mean, I don't know how well this bike will hold up, but if you need that, then by all means. When it comes to performance, the 350 watt motor and 36 volt system, of course, would lag behind 500 and 750 watt bikes, and I'll put that on the screen what some of those comparisons are like. It's not by any means super slow off the line, it's a little sluggish, but for newer riders it allows you to not have to deal with a really strong input of power on takeoff. It's got the twist throttle style, so if you are a throttle only rider you might like that style. I think that's a little bit better than the thumb throttles for throttle only riders. I would probably think about upgrading these grips pretty quickly if you're covering any distance to something a lot more soft for your hands. So we're coming up to a 14% hill. This is about 8 degrees. I always test from throttle only, from a stop, highest assist level just in case. Here we go. This part of the hill is where I typically feel the different amount of power making over that little flat section. So this is just barely doing it. I wouldn't do this very often. I wouldn't put this kind of strain on the bike itself typically. I just want to be real consistent here for testing purposes. And stop. Okay, so it did make it up it. It didn't do it in any sort of all right, well, we made it up the hill. That's about all I'll say about that. I would be pedaling this one to give it a lot of help up the hill. And because it's lightweight like this, you can pedal up over the assist level pretty easily. So I'll put up the results from my acceleration braking. I'm gonna finish up my range test. I'll show those range results in the screen as well. You know, distance is not a problem for this bike. It does really cover some distance. So, you know, it's how you want to cover it. No water bottle holders. I just use one of those little aftermarket ones to put on the handlebars. The wire management is actually pretty good. But man, these crank arms, did I mention how cheap these crank arms are? Man, they're cheap. All this stuff you could, you know, upgrade if something about this bike really stood out to you, because most of those things are just typical bike parts. So that's all I got on the MacMission. Right on.